Hi, I'm Leela Harris, and I'm a Dalian method facilitator, and I'm here with Kaleo Selah, and he's a lead coach for Dragon Performance Coaching. And today, we're just going to get together and talk about issues concerning men and the masculine, and we're just going to let the conversation unfold. And I know this is a huge topic for Kaleo, and I'm really excited to hear what you have to say. You already mentioned things that you are helping people with and focusing on, like men that are over 40 and divorced and are going through a lot of transition, and kind of that maybe also men that are in a little bit of a crisis.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. What they say, the only constant in life is change. And if the only constant in life is change, then the quality of life has to have something to do with how you manage change. And in a society where both men and women are taught to seek stability,
Mm-hmm.
Men are especially taught to provide stability if you want a meaningful family life or a romantic relationship, or especially employment, right? So if you want the rewards of the system, you have to look stable. Right? So then we get out the DSM, the Diagnostic Statistic Manual, and we start trying to label people of, how unstable they are, right? It's a huge industry to label this instability. So as men, we are brainwashed for stability, consistency.
Yeah.
Rock solid, loyalty, nationalism, patriotism, I'm going to die and kill for my country. Well, how many times are you going to do that, man? How many times are you going to die for your country? I think you can only do it once. Okay? It just doesn't make sense. There's a lot of things about the way we have been brainwashed in this society, both men and women, but we're talking about men right now. And this idea of quality of life as a stable, okay, so what do I mean by stable? Rigid, the same, no variation.
Yeah, controlled, maybe.
Control.
Yeah.
You follow the steps of the ones who went before you.
Yeah.
Now you think of cultural identity. When I speak of stability and quality of life, you think of these cultural identities. We just took a partner and I just took a pretty good long 6-7 week trip all through Europe. And cultural identity is real. Okay, so we live in Australia. I'm originally from Omaha, Nebraska, U.S. Actually lived in Kansas City for a while. Miriam, Kansas, right? So Miriam, Kansas, way back in the old days, and then Warnell Street, close to where you live, a long time ago, a while back. It really stood out going through Europe that these cultural identities are real, man. It's not just the language. It's not just the food. It's mannerisms and ideas. The ideal for the culture becomes the pervasive programming for the people, both men and women. And it starts very young. Starts incredibly young, starts incredibly early. Some would say in the womb, right? So Gabor Mate, who talks about epigenetics and, neuroplasticity and all this sort of stuff, man, he would say, guess what, guys? Your culture doesn't start at, you know, when you go to school, or when you hit the synagogue, or, you know, when you hit the streets. It starts literally in the womb.
Yeah, because you're picking all that up in that sensitivity, energetically. You're picking
Energetically, right? So one of our favorite words, right? The energetics of the interconnection creates culture in the womb, and we would say at the DNA level.
Mm-hmm.
Which means that if you, as a person, Leela, Kaleo, you know, divorced men over 40, if you believe you're doomed by your culture, by your gender, by your socioeconomic standing, if you believe you're doomed by your DNA, right? So, right? If you believe you're doomed by the way your brain is wired, then that belief will be the thing that carries you and will become the determinant, the determination, the determinant, there's a word, of your quality of life.
Mm-hmm.
The quality of life is only as available or expansive or attractive as the quality of the belief, the thought, the perception that then we say comes down to your perspective. You either have, there's only two perspectives on the entire planet that anyone can ever have. And the only thing a human is ever in control of, Leela, is their perspective. And the one perspective is called the pervasive problem perspective, the PPP, pervasive problem perspective. The other perspective is called the absolute opportunity perspective. And we, as a human species, have been so programmed and locked in to this pervasive problem perspective that we can't even see that this thing is running our world. Anywhere we're looking for control. Go ahead.
Well, I was wondering, so the idea that there's a problem I need to fix. And I wonder if that's especially challenging for men and people with a lot of masculine energy, because then their worth is maybe based on my ability to fix and that kind of thing.
Yes.
I can do something. I had a workshop this weekend, and there was a man in the workshop that was actually he had a realization that, because he's going to be retiring before too long in the future, but not too long from now. And he realized that he places more worth on what he does than who he is. So now he's on this self-discovery journey because he can feel there is a lot of fear there. Like, who am I if I'm not working? And he did see that my worth is not dependent on what I do. It's independent, but there was still just the deeper layers of all these kind of voices that say, how can that be? How can my worth be just intrinsic? That's impossible. Like, I need something. And so there's that void, and it's pretty scary, I think.
It is scary. And when you introduced me as the lead coach for Dragon Performance Coaching, a lot of people, the majority of the people, when they hear that, they're just like, performance, like, high performance, hot rod, like go get them, like Tony Robbins, that 1980s Tony Robbins, release the beast within kind of thing, right? It's like, we're gonna go tackle the world, right? Tackle what? Tackle problems, right? That's what people believe is this idea of performance, life performance as tackling problems. Men, we get it drilled into us, and this is cross culture. Right? So it doesn't matter if you're Greek or African or American or freaking Mexican or Australian. It doesn't matter. Irish, UK, men solve problems. That's it.
And what happens when a man can't fix it or isn't able to? That's sometimes destroys their self-esteem, huh?
Well, that's you're branded a failure,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? So performance as an external thing that is outside myself is the old normal. That's the old way. Well, we're bringing in the new normal. We're bringing in the new way, which is internal performance. I just got chills. You just saying that. I don't know if I've ever said this before. Internal performance. What does that mean, Kaleo? That means the quality of my thoughts, the quality of my perspective, the quality of my perception, the quality of my internal relationship. The internal qualities become my experienced quality of life. And when I work with anybody across the board, this is it. This is all we're ever talking about. So, of course, at the super freaking nasty black hole of it, which is divorced man over 40 who used to be somebody and is no longer anybody, Divorced women over 40, I don't know. I mean, they're just kind of free. They're just kind of like, cool. Whoa.
Yeah, there is that experience of I'm a nobody now when there's a loss of the identity. Right? There's a potential for a man to be significantly lost if he has not flipped his ideas before this kind of stuff happens. So I work with, I'm working, I work with a lot of different people, all ranges of life. My current and, future focus is working with these men 40 and over who have been divorced and their lives have been turned inside out and they don't know who they are, don't know what to do, don't know what their social status is anymore. They've lost. Mm-hmm. They've lost it. What's the it? Well, name it, the idea of being a man, the idea of winning, the idea of being a man who wins. I have seen this in real life. I have been with men who one day they are just on top of the world. The next day, man, they're beyond broken. They're beyond broken. So a lot of very depressive, which then of course takes people to, all sorts of different, abuse, a lot of abuse, right? So a lot of abuse of substance, mm-hmm. A lot of abuse of other relationships, right? They take it out on the world. That is all fueled by an external idea of quality of life and performance. Life as a possession and everything in life as a possession, rather than I live life as a tool, living life through me. Life is this thing that comes through me. I am a conduit for it to happen. And I can't possibly control that. It's not possible. Because as all energy expands and connects, where do I end and the other thing begin, right? So if we are in fact all connected, and that's an internal experience that certain of us have had for certain parts of our lives, such that when we come up against life difficulty,
we are prepared for the challenge. Opportunity, perspective.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Thank you for allowing me to feel my wholeness, my oneness, my entirety. Not just the good parts, not just the happy, oh, check me out. Not just the, hey, honey, I'm home. Not just the, oh, damn, everybody loves me. No, I'm talking about the other 99% of it, man. The stuff everybody wants to medicate, the stuff everybody wants to control, the stuff everybody wants to, right? And then, oh yeah, be a big boy, real men don't what? Real men don't what? Real men don't what? Pet baby goats? Yeah, we do. Real men don't what? Pick flowers? Yeah, we do. Real men don't what? Cry to their mama? Yeah, we do. What are you talking about? Watch Private Ryan. You want to see some real men who cry? Watch Private Ryan. Saving Private Ryan. I've watched it in the last, I don't know, a couple months, 3 months maybe. I watched it again probably for the, 9th, 10th, 12th time. Man, I'm all, it's like, So the emotional maturity, right? So we talk about emotional intelligence, intelligent maturity, and emotional maturity, right? So these kind of things just kind of start fuzzing together a little bit. And if a person cannot find the opportunity, perspective within their life experience while they are waiting for what? Another life to show up? What are they waiting for?
Mm-hmm.
Then their quality of life will automatically suffer. I don't care how much money they have. I don't care what kind of job they have. And if they put so much emphasis outside themselves, the day that all of those things outside themselves go away, i.e. divorce, she gets half, and if they've lived a really good life, she gets like 70%. Everything they've worked for, all their possessions, all of their relationships, like especially the social relationships that they've created as a unit, as a family, right? Fracture.
Mm-hmm.
If they have not done the requisite work internally on themselves before then they got to come see somebody like me, man, because it's just, it gets real pointy.
Well, that's often the way existence tries to kind of come down and say, come on, wake up. I know I've been through pretty intense experiences, and I look back and they did something incredible for me, but it's hard to see it in the moment when you're just feeling the pain. But
unless that is your life practice, unless that is, yeah. Yes, it is, okay? Yes, it is.
That's what makes you start doing it. Like, yeah. I meet a lot of people that say, yeah, I didn't believe in all this. I just thought it was silly. I just thought this, and then this thing happened, and then, I started opening up because something happened to me.
Well, because for a lot of people, I'll even say most people, how about this? At some point for every person, that's all they have left. At some point, for every person who's ever lived, that's all they have left. What is it? What's all they have left, Kaleo? All they have left is themselves. And for those who have not taken the time to identify themselves within their own life, i.e., successful divorced men over 40 who all of a sudden wake up and a lifetime of investment, a lifetime of work, a lifetime of effort, a lifetime of control, a lifetime of possessions, a lifetime of ideas are gone. A lifetime of importance. How about that one?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So the self-importance, oh my God. Men are especially so programmed towards self-importance because we can solve the problem, right? Look back at the gladiator days. Look at the military. Look at the old warrior days. The old soldier days. I mean, that's all that's about.
Yeah, all that conquering and all the. Also, I've been thinking about the wars throughout our history, and how much men have been that programming. Especially, I don't know. Have you looked into the Japanese culture and that kind of the samurai warrior and the honor? If you lose your honor, it's a fate worse than death, and so then they perform the harikari, and you kill yourself because that's the only way to have any kind of face in that losing.
Yes.
And that programming of that must be incredibly strong. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because of the intensity of that. Yeah.
Absolutely. Right. So I mean, one of the things that you brought up when you first offered to do this podcast with me, you said something about the Me Too movement. You're just like, there's this like there are things happening on the stage of life today, globally, that are really shining the light on the misogyny, the misogynistic undertones of life. Yeah.
And also
what you just said is there's nothing new happening here. This has been going on for a long time, and it's woven into the culture. It's woven into the society. It's woven into the DNA. It is passed down from generation to generation to generation, where it is an honor to die in the next war.
Yeah. And the shame of not doing that or even questioning it, right? Yeah.
The shame of questioning it, right? So consciousness. All right. So in my practice, I've been doing this for a long time. Okay. So I've been a professional coach. Had my first professional coaching client when I was 15. And I'm 49. So whatever that is, 34 years, right? Okay. Is that 34? Yeah, it's 34 years. So I've been in the deep end of this for a long time. Okay. What I've had to do, used to be like I'll just write all this stuff about what I experienced and how I experienced and what I'm doing, and then I would just basically teach how I live. So my practice and my coaching methods and just my influence has evolved over the years significantly, like severely, right? So what used to be very complex is now very simple. I used to, one of my badges of honor used to be, oh man, let's just use all the big words and just be all Mr. Smarty Pants, right? Let's see how smart, right? So one of my things in real life is, right? So I'm an intellectual snob, right? I'm a consciousness snob and I'm an intellectual snob, right? You can't be dumb around me and you can't be freaking unconscious, right? Something bad gonna happen. Okay, so what that therefore has forced me, right? That's my shadow. That's just that's why I have to deal with this all the time. Okay, nothing new. So what I've had to do is I've had to just condense everything into these bite-sized chunks that just make sense. And one of them is what you just did. One of them is what you just said. And what you just said is they can't even ask a question about their culture, their society, their upbringing, their family life, their sexuality.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because the question is the key to consciousness. There is no consciousness, there is no new consciousness without someone asking a question. You need to write that one down, girl. You need to write that one down.
Well, that's basically what mind control is, right? You can't even question. Don't dare question. This is the right way. Don't even explore beyond this, because there's going to be this punishment. And that's how a lot of the organized religions based on fear, the masculinity, the femininity, all these unconscious expressions of both. And just so many things. We could go on forever for all the examples that you've mentioned.
Okay, you say we could go on forever with all these examples. Now let's just snapshot that, right? So this is we're kind of in a session right now, okay? Just so you know, this is exactly how I work, okay? So we're gonna snapshot that. Okay, we're gonna snapshot that. All these examples, we could go on forever. Wait a minute. So this isn't just a divorced men over 40 kind of thing. This isn't just a men kind of thing. Wait. This is about women also? And wait. This is about like over the history of civilization? This is how it's been happening? So there's nothing new about this? We're just finding new ways to talk about it, new questions to ask about it, right? So the key to our practice, the key to our new normal Dragon Performance Coaching practice is learning the number one skill. Okay, it's a number 2 skill. Okay, well, it's a number 3 skill. Is learning how to ask better, simpler questions. Mm-hmm. That's the key. The number 1 skill is stop. Just stop. Stop what? Stop believing your beliefs. Well, how do I do that? Ask better question. Oh, wait a minute. Oh, it just kind of goes around. Yeah, because opportunity perspective is fueled by stop. Observe, feel, ask a question about that feeling inside. I wonder why I feel bad about taking this job, moving my family, putting my family at risk in order to, quote, provide for my family, knowing it's all for my ego stroke.
Yeah.
Think of the 50s, man. Think of the 60s. Think of the right. So it's probably like late 60s, 70s, 80s, right? So the upward mobility thing, where we're getting into like global corporatism and the next level of competition, right? So men are driven by competition. You don't really have to go to the athletic world, you know, the collegiate or the professional collegiate, the professional or the Olympic world. You don't really have to go to that level of competition to see that competition runs the show. So let's go away from athletics and go to banking, Wall Street, right? Quarterly returns, quarterly profits, quarterly reports, right? So they're not talking about some, 10,000 year plan like they have in China. They're talking 3 months.
Mm-hmm.
They're making decisions based on 3 months. That has an energetic imprint on the people who choose to swim in that water. Yes, we could talk about this forever. We can talk about this forever because we have the guts to ask, we have the guts to stop and ask real questions on what's objectively observable. If we are goldfish swimming in poop water, we want to know where's all the poop come from. We're not just, we're not just like, oh, I guess this is the only water there is. Like, no, time out, man, time out. It ain't got to be like this all the time. My grandmother had something to say a long time ago. She said, just because you're poor doesn't mean you got to be dirty. Mm. Just because you live in the hood doesn't mean that your house has to be filthy. Just because you're poor doesn't mean that you have to that you have to be dumb. Just because you're human living on this planet doesn't mean you have to be blind, unconscious, and just go with the flow. I'm sorry. There's way too many of us who have proved over the years the opposite. You don't have to do that.
And there are consequences to doing that, though, too. Staying blind. It's not just like, yeah.
Major consequences.
Yeah. I mean, personally, to the person that's inside of us internally, because each one of us has, even if we're totally cut off and it's buried and we're so far away from it, I feel each person has something inside that knows when I'm doing something in integrity and when I'm not. And it's that is there. It stores all those unconscious actions. Yeah. Absolutely.
And that's what we call the shadow, right? So the dragon part of our coaching is the shadow work, the deep shadow work, right? And it begins by observing the internal feeling of what's going on, like observing yourself, right? So we get to this level of like, triple, quadruple levels of observation inside. So we can observe ourselves, observing ourselves. And you can take that out infinitely. But, so many people, I would say by far the vast majority of people who have ever lived do not have the skill of observing themselves. Self-observation, right? Self-awareness. Consciousness of my own thoughts, consciousness of my own intentions, consciousness of my own motivation, my own motivations. To the extent that they don't know, majority of people do not know whether they are motivated by something out there that they've been told and sold and cajoled, or something singular in here that is uniquely theirs. Authenticity, the authentic motivation versus the programmed motivation.
Yeah, and that's where there is such a, when you really face that, as I've looked at these things in myself, and I hope other people do the same, it's really like there's such a sadness at seeing how much we spend taking energetically. And we're doing a relationship series video with, I'm doing that with some other Dalian method facilitators, and we talk about relationships. And basically what we ended up doing is deconstructing how it's 90% false. That it's just like, even our nice facade, we're still taking, we're still trying to keep up this identity of, okay, people like me, this person is doing what I want them to do, and it's all can be very passive aggressive at times. But yeah, it's just
Yeah.
so it's almost like there's so much that has a hidden agenda behind it.
Absolutely, and that's what the shadow work's about.
Yeah,
that's absolutely right, and that's what the shadow work is about. So one of the realities that I've come up with, and the people that work with me, the courageous folks who work with me, one of the things we've come up with is all of this relationship, romance, law of attraction, spiritual kindness. We are all one. Fairy dust, unicorns, and I love everybody, and I'll give anybody my last anything. And that's what we call spiritual bypassing, right? There's a term Robert Masters came up with called spiritual bypassing, and that is what that is. It's an actual act, and it is not. It is not the way. Okay, so here I said it. I don't know if I've ever said it on public TV. I'm sure I have somewhere. I'm sure I've written it. But if you're not doing the shadow work,
yeah,
you're fooling yourself. You're yet in another loop of illusion, delusion, self-created perception, right? So if the world is our movie screen and we are projecting it, it's another layer that is hiding what we would call the truth. And the truth has to be the yin-yang perspective of life, which is light, dark, ebb, flow, life, death. I'll say this: good, bad, judgment, non-judgment. Ask me this one, Leela. Hey, Kaleo, do you judge people? Ask me.
Kaleo, do you judge people?
Hell yeah! How do you think I stay alive on this tough, mean planet? Now, I might do it a lot differently than somebody else. Like, I guarantee you I do it a lot differently than somebody else, but it's still judgment.
Yeah, but there is a difference when you're self-aware and you're watching the judgments. Is that where you're getting to? That there's a difference?
Well, that's great.
You know you're judging. You know the judgments are there.
That's great. And right. So what we say is judgment at like a sheep, bull, and shark level is that unaware judgment where it's righteousness. I am right and they are wrong, right? At the dragon level, judgment turns into discernment. But anyone else would call it judgment.
Mm-hmm.
Although judgment and discernment are different, right? So to have a discerning palate, back in the old cave people days where they didn't know what they were eating, okay? When something smelled rotten and they chose not to eat it because they have a discerning palate, it probably kept them alive.
Yeah, because it's that following that feeling that something doesn't feel right here, or something, I don't like this.
Something doesn't feel right. I don't like this, right? So my partner has a discerning palate that goes all the way through her body, such that if she eats something that's not good for her, she will know very quickly. And it's not just the taste, it's not just the texture. It's like, all systems, all systems go on red alert. Okay.
Yeah. So I would like to hear about men and feeling and sensing.
Yes.
And I know that's a challenge for a lot of men. And yeah.
Yeah.
And women too. I mean, women too, but.
You are funny, okay? You're funny.
Why?
I mean, who do you think I am? You're asking some pretty, who do you think
I'm not asking you to get
I
into.
am? Kaleo can answer anything.
It's an exploration.
Okay.
But since I'm not a man, it's harder
Right.
for me to discuss these things. So you're a man. So that's why
Yes,
I'm
I
kind
am.
of like, yeah.
Yes, I am. And you chose me for this. And thank you very much. And I appreciate that. And, you know,
And I'm also actually curious. I want to hear more about these things personally.
the strongest man in the room is the man who can cry no matter who else is in the room. So most men grow up as boys who were trained from the earliest age the difference between girls and boys. Little girls do certain things, little boys do certain other things. Little girls play with dolls and want to cook on their little Betty Crocker set. Boys play with fire trucks and want to set stuff on fire. Go catch toads and snakes. That's what I did. So we're separated from the very beginning. So this whole transgender LBGTQI, right? Does I mean intersex?
I'm not sure. I haven't been able to keep up on all the newest things, but yeah, I think you're close. You're either close or close enough.
I think somebody knows what I'm talking about. Right? It's the most basic confusion a human can ever have. What determines my gender? What determines my it's not even my sex. You can't even say my sex anymore. What determines my wait, how about this one? Does gender determine my gender? It's like, what? What? What do you mean? Does gender determine your gender? What gender are you? I was born a girl, but that doesn't mean anything. Okay? I actually don't get it, okay? So I actually don't get it. That doesn't mean anything. Right? So what I say I do not get is like what's at the root of what's causing this stuff, like in our lifetimes, like it's all of a sudden.
Mm-hmm.
It's all of a sudden. I'm probably coming up with a little bit of a theory right now. It's open to interpretation because those old rules of control are falling away. Those old stereotype, Marlboro man, mm-hmm. right? Yeah. So those old stereotypes of real men don't play with dolls. And then you get these rappers these days, you get these black inner city gangster rappers wearing dresses. Mm-hmm. So, where emotions fit in all this is, I think we're going through a very confusing time for men with emotions. We're in what I call a tween state. So a tween state is when the old normal has run its course and the new normal hasn't shown up yet. There's this between state. There's this chunk of darkness in the middle, and it's confusion.
Yeah. And it's not, it's good that there's this freedom opening up so that people can explore and really go in depth with gender, sexuality, and all these orientations and lifestyle. I think I've had some guesses at and senses what could be going on. Each person is unique, of course, but I think past lives of, maybe being in a different body or being just different situations, and also beliefs about gender, about which gender, and maybe some like very negative self-beliefs about certain genders that could be part of it. Yeah.
I absolutely. And on top of that, I believe there is, at the very least, some shadow backlash from the years of pent up emotional resistance, the years of putting women in their place, the years of segregation, degradation, and Me Too. So there's something in the water, excuse me, that this generation, and what I mean by this generation is people who are living now, because it's not just the millennials.
Mm-hmm.
Caitlyn Jenner, probably used to be Bruce Jenner. I knew him as Bruce Jenner, right? So when I was all into Olympics and athletics and all that sort of stuff, I knew the dude as Bruce Jenner, okay? I kind of have a tough time calling him Caitlyn, okay? Because I know him as Bruce, okay? He's whatever, 60, he's 60, he's not a millennial. But there's this time, right? So he's like, I would call him like on some, at least as a celebrity, as a well-known celebrity, he's on this upper edge age group that is living in this time where it's all of a sudden for our American international freaking, gold medal boy to finally express himself. So I believe there has been severe repercussions down to the person, down to individual surgical decisions that come from a pent up environment, pent up family units, pent up subcultures that we are now seeing, either the bursting of a balloon, or you have the little pinhole in the thing and all the air tries to come out. The volcano finally erupts, right? So this 10,000-year volcano picks one day to blow 10,000 years worth of freaking magma all over everybody. That's Caitlyn Jenner, man.
Well, that's a lot of these things that are happening and being uncovered, and just so many.
Here we go. Right? Angry white men going into public with their AKs and their AR-15 and killing everybody. Mm. And I say angry white men because that's what we see on television. I appreciate the gangbang mentality, the gangbang culture, you know, the Crips and Bloods, the tribal gang affiliations, right? That's been there for a long time. We're talking about at some level, we're talking about nationalism, tribalism, you know, warring territories, that sort of stuff. The new one is the white guy who goes into the place and murders a bunch of people. That's the new one. I think it is yet another signal that we have programmed male psyche over, let's call it the millennia. Let's call it the last 2,000 years, right? Millennia is 1,000 years, right? Let's call it the last 2 millennia. For self-hatred. We've programmed it for self-hatred. Mm-hmm. Where everything of any value, any status, any worth is found outside. Is found outside. It's not found inside. So when things outside all of a sudden don't look like apple pie, Chevrolet, and baseball, middle America, when all of a sudden things start changing in that tween space where it's dark and scary, they're reaching for their gun. That's what they've been taught to do. They're reaching for their gun. That's what they've been taught to do.
But also that feeling of, I've got to defend myself, it happens on more subtle ways to everyday people, in a sense, right? I've had conversations with men where there's a feeling of, Kaleo, you know how when something happens and I'm trying to think of an example. Well, say someone is criticizing you, like someone's criticizing me, and there's that feeling of, I want to, like, that defense inside, like the ego.
That's right. Yeah.
So and so that feeling is, I think, more pronounced in the masculine, that I'm being attacked. So it's not even just like the more obvious ways. It's just like, I'm being attacked right now. I'm being questioned right now. My authority is being questioned. My political identity is being questioned. So there's this, but inside it feels like I'm being attacked, and it's like life or death.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And at any level of shadow defense, we just call it a trigger.
Yeah.
Right. So in psychology, psychiatry, in marital, any sort of human relationship, when something happens, when something snaps, you know, we professionals, we call it a trigger. Right. So to be triggered is to
well, it's the first step to transformation, right? Because something's getting exposed from the unconscious.
Keep going. Keep going.
So that exposure is.
I want to hear this.
Yeah. Well, the exposure is the painful part, where we want to protect from that exposure, from the process of transformation, where the ego is feeling a little bit of that ego death, or a lot, depending on the situation.
Right.
But if it's allowed to surface and be expressed authentically, instead of covering it over with spiritual, psychological, or some kind of strategy, or attacking or getting identified with being
violence
to defend, it can actually completely change us over and over and over and transform our lives. and it's a very difficult process. I've been going through it, but but it's also in a way. Yeah. But
I'm glad you're laughing. It's not a laughing matter, but I'm glad
you
you're laughing.
have to laugh, because what else are you gonna do? Cry right now?
Oh no! What else you gonna do? You're gonna pick up your AK-47. You're gonna pick up your AR-14, and you're gonna start killing people because it's their fault, right?
Yeah.
So what else are we gonna do? We're gonna go start a war. We're gonna go blame those other people over there that don't look like me. We're gonna go take their stuff.
Mm-hmm.
We're gonna go kill their women. That's what men do.
But doesn't it happen in more subtle ways, where it's like, I'm just going to shut down emotionally and isolate myself and block the world out? Like these more subtle ways of protecting ourselves from that transformational process of, I feel like a failure and I can't win and I can't conquer, so I'm going to go and hide and run away. It's fight or flight, actually.
Right, absolutely. Yeah. And we call that would be the isolation, separation, response,
mm-hmm.
or reaction to the trigger. Absolutely. And that then goes, of course, that goes into desperation. That then goes into generally some sort of chemical dependence, which then, starts getting into the whole porn addiction and all that, and then ultimately, because they can't do that. They can't do that for very long. The plant with no connection is a dead plant very quickly. They find some sort of they generally find some person or situation to victimize.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been told that even the worst man can get a woman. A lot of bad men out there who don't know any different, who have been modeled badness, who refuse to ask any question about their way, who are self-righteous about their decisions, their behavior. That's crazy. That's crazy. I did not even mean to draw in the United States right now. I didn't even mean to do that just now. I can't believe I just did that. Now, if you play back what I just said, and you don't know, if you play back what I just said, and you just look at, somebody like Harvey Weinstein, all the people who have been outed all these different ways in the Me Too movement, including the President of the United States. They all fit what I just said.
Mm-hmm.
It comes out in some kind of way. Even when they isolate themselves, it comes out in some kind of way that has to find victims. Has to find victims.
Well, I want to not go too long, maybe give it a few more minutes, but how do you want to kind of wrap this up? I was almost thinking about the difference between false power and real power, but then that might go another 30 minutes because that's opening up the discussion.
I want to say that the key to quality of life, and this goes across the board for all people, but especially, you know, I'll say it, especially for divorced men over 40. The key to quality of life, and the first step to quality of life, is taking ownership, personal responsibility for what's going on inside. Mm-hmm. And as long as a person, a man, a divorced man over 40, is attached and blinded and single-mindedly brainwashed by what's going on out there, they are distracted from ever taking responsibility for what's going on inside. That's the masculine dilemma. That's it. That is the hidden inner conflict that every man on this planet has to acknowledge and work through by any means available. That's what we say in our practice, by any means available. I don't care what you have to do. I don't care who you make mad. Mm-hmm. Go inside.
Or who you disappoint.
Personal. Who you disappoint. How it looks. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it is hard, Leela. And you already said it. It's hard, right? So that's where coaches like us come into play, where we, you know, we're doing the work, we're doing it ourselves, right? I don't ever teach anything to anyone or expect anyone to do anything that I don't already do, that I haven't already done. Okay. And so getting support from a coach, getting counseling, going to groups, finding your community, staying engaged and being willing. Oh, see, this is, we're back at square one again. Being willing to open yourself, which then goes to motivation. Are they motivated? Can a person go from, I am motivated, to separation, segregation, nationalism, and racism? Can they be motivated to inclusion, wholeness, connection, and expansion?
And those things happen within, not outside, right? That's the point.
Yeah.
They're not something you get from someone else or outside. It's a transformational process from within.
Absolutely. And the motivation has to go from an external motivation, which is, if you don't do this, I'm gonna hurt you. If you don't do this right, it's the threat paradigm. It's a threat paradigm, right? So if you don't go to counseling or go to your psychiatrist, then we're going to fire you, or you're going to lose your livelihood or whatever. It's got to then come from an internal motivation that says, I really want to see what this is all about. The curiosity, which is where the questions start. And when you learn to ask the questions, you really learn to observe yourself with this inner silence that's like, this is cool, man.
It is, especially when you go from like depression and anxiety and the racing mind and the fear to silence and more moments of peacefulness and settledness and no matter what's going on around you. Mm-hmm.
No matter what's going on around you, that is incredibly important. It is not dependent on the external environment. And that's something that a person can only experience when they experience it. You can't explain that to someone.
Yeah, it's not.
You can't really describe it.
It's not something you can understand without the experience. It's just
right. So quite often in our practice, when people start working with me at a serious level, I tell them to put down the books. Put down the books, put down the crystals. Ooh, dismantle your dismantle that dismantle that altar,
The vision
and then
board.
and then see what you got.
Yeah. Yeah.
Get real. Integrated life.
Yeah. Let's leave it at that. That's a great
Oh,
final saying. Get real.
yes.
Sounds good. Thank you,
Yes.
Kaleo. Thank you.
Yeah, this is fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fun.
You're good, Leela.
Thank you.
All
Thanks for
right.
coming. Let's see.